Welcome to the Supplier Diversity and Inclusion podcast by Fips Consulting. In this podcast, I speak with international guests who share their experience on supplier diversity and inclusion. Today, I speak with Maggie Berry. Maggie is director at Heart of the City in London. Maggie, thanks so much for being my guest today.
Hi, Andrea. Thank you so much for the invite.
Great having you. So you are a director at Heart of the City. Can you tell me a bit more about the organization Heart of the City and what you do?
Absolutely. So Heart of the City, we are a responsible business charity. And by responsible business, I really mean that as an all-encompassing term around all things around sustainability, ESG, CSR, net zero. And we specifically support small and medium-sized enterprises. So I would describe those as businesses with up to 250 staff to get started on their responsible business journey. So really looking at all of the building blocks a business needs to have in place to run a good business. And indeed, the charity's tagline is that we believe every business can be a force for good. It's nearly 25 years old now, the charity. It's been running for a good number of years. We are based in the City of London, but we do work across the UK. And I would describe and say that we have a small but mighty team and strive to help as many small businesses as possible with all things sustainability.
Wow, that's very interesting. So you actually do support any small business that's located in the UK, right?
Yes, absolutely. We have our roots and our heritage is definitely right in the heart of the city. In fact, our offices are based right above the original Roman amphitheatre in the City of London. But we actually work with SMEs across the UK. And indeed, if there are SMEs listening in from elsewhere, as long as you can read business English, you can access all of the brilliant free resources that we have online as well. But we definitely have a UK slant on everything.
Cool. Yeah, I just wanted to say, so how does that really look like? So you just mentioned you have like online training or resources. So what else do you do?
Yeah, so really at the core of what we do, we provide, we say training programs, training programs that are designed to really break down sometimes quite complex sustainability topics and make them doable for a small business. So really a lot of engagement around upskilling SMEs to be able to look at these topics themselves. And so we run a couple of core training programs, one called Foundations for Responsible Business, which looks at things related to, I would say, people, place, and the planet. So it might be around your looking at employee well-being, mental health. It might be looking at things like community volunteering. You might be looking at things like net zero. But we also have a specific dedicated course all about climate and net zero and getting started on that journey to net zero. We also run free lunch and learn sessions, looking at all sorts of different topics. We've got ones coming up about Pride in a few weeks. We've got one coming up about the Good Business Charter. They're meant to be short insights into topics that can really help an SME just to kind of spark some ideas and to get started. And then we've got tons of free resources online. We've got a resource hub and SMEs can log in. Actually, any business can log in, put in a search they might be looking for, might be, say, to do with supporting females, or maybe older workers with menopause in the workplace, and you can find a resource that we've put together. There's all sorts of brilliant tools there, all free. You might need to share some details about who you are with us to kind of download them, but we'd really love them to reach as many SMEs as possible, and really, to spark ideas about what a business can do in a really practical, pragmatic way. We know ESG is a big topic, and I certainly our drive at the charity is we don't want it to be a barrier to success for business. We want to support them and enable them to know, what are they going to say put together in their carbon plan to get started on their journey to net zero. So if they're then maybe doing a pitch or a presentation to win new business, it's not going to be a barrier to them if they get asked by a potential client, right? So what's your strategy? We would be able to help them put something in place.
Love it. And that's all for free. So as an SME, it would be kind of Well, not stupid, but yeah, why not make use of all the free resources and all that
Absolutely.
information?
Yeah, absolutely. And we have we have funding at different points for businesses in different areas. So yes, the vast majority of the resources that we have online, they're all free. The webinars are free. The programs are there. And interestingly and increasingly, I think for your audience listening to this podcast, we're increasingly working with larger corporates and supporting their SME supply chain. So I think lots of big businesses like, right, we want to be embedding ESG practices ourselves, but they need to flow that down the value chain. And so they might be considering things like, maybe EcoVadis accreditation, or it might be that actually we now, in order to keep working with us, you might need to set a science-based target, for example. But these are all things that are quite challenging for small businesses if they've never really been looking at it. And so we also have programs that large corporates are funding to support for their SME suppliers, which I'm really pleased to see, because this is quite a complex world. And as I said a few months ago, I don't want this to be a barrier to SMEs being able to win business, or retain business, or, and so working with larger corporates who are looking at this topic is really inspiring. And we're really, really making some great inroads in providing that kind of support to large corporates for their maybe a direct supplier, but maybe a tier 2 or a tier 3 supplier.
Right. And I think anyway, for large corporates, also in supplier diversity and inclusion, right? You just want to make sure that you include small and medium-sized businesses, because that also means they're probably more local, more regional. It helps your ESG, your CO2 emissions, and so on and so on. So that's great.
Yeah, all of that good stuff and more. I really see this area developing further as big businesses really get a handle on who is in our supply chain, and how do we support the smaller entities that are in the supply chain and make sure that they're continuing to add value. So yeah, that's a really exciting piece of work for the charity, and the team are really enjoying some of the partnerships that we're developing there with large entities.
Very cool. So how can these corporates then engage with you? Do they just like go to your website and sign up, or how does
They
that work?
they can. There's definitely information. The website, really, the information on the website is more geared towards SMEs in terms of like our resource
Mm.
hub and different things like that. But actually, there's a page all about how you can support your SME suppliers. And if anybody's listening and would like to find out more, I say please get in touch with the team. We would love to have a conversation. We build a lot of bespoke programs that really match, because although businesses might have similar goals, the where they're going to reach them is slightly different. And so we certainly don't have a one size fits all. And that's certainly the approach we take with SMEs as well. There isn't a one size fits all for this. We want to make sure that the support we have will work for that business in that sector, which might be different if if you're in the built environment, or you're maybe a recruitment agency, or you're maybe working in retail and hospitality. Some of the challenges in SME that you'd be facing are a little bit different. And we want to make sure that we can answer all of those industry specific questions as well.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, one size fits all in supply chain, that's usually not something that works, right?
No, no,
Not
no,
for
no, no,
SMEs, not for corporate. So
no, 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 no.
different setup, different sourcing strategies, all kind of different things going on there.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now you also have been working with ethnic minority businesses, and also Minority Business Matters. So can you share some information about what you did there with that collaboration?
Yeah, it's a really exciting collaboration actually between Heart of the City and MSD UK, that I'm hoping some of your podcast listeners will be familiar with. Their leading supplier diversity organisation in the UK, working with ethnic minority-owned businesses, and who I'd previously done a lot of work with. And in the spring of last year, 2023, the UK government in London issued a call for applications to a UK Shared Prosperity Fund pot of funding to support small businesses in London. And some of the themes really resonated with us. Some of the themes were around sustainability, around being supplier ready, around ethnic minority owned businesses. So I approached MSD UK and said, I think we could do a really interesting joint project here, with the expertise that Heart of the City has around supporting SMEs with sustainability, and the brilliant experience that MSD UK has around helping businesses, specifically ethnic minority-owned businesses, to be supply chain ready. And so what we have created is a project called Minority Business Matters. Now, this one is very geographic specific. It is London, but all of the London boroughs. And basically, we currently have funding for any ethnic minority-owned business in London to participate in Heart of the City's Foundations for Responsible Business programme, to access, if they would like, any of some of the MSD UK programmes like their Accelerator, their Innovation Challenge, their Pathway to High Growth. And really, through registering on the website, there is a standalone website called minoritybusinessmatters.com. EMBs in London can access all of this support for free, all funded through the UK government and the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which is just fabulous. And we want that to reach as many EMBs as possible.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
that's great news. And
Yes.
yeah, well, for people listening, if you don't know MSC UK, there is also one podcast episode actually with Mayank Shah, who is the founder of MSD UK. If you want to learn more about them, but that's great news. So
Yeah.
I hear all that positive things, and it's so easy. You know, you're a charity; it's all free, and corporates are working with you, and you have this Minority Business Matter offering for EMBs in London. So, but I'm sure that you also have lots of challenges that you face in your organization. So, what would they be?
Oh, you know, we are the same as any kind of small not-for-profit or charity. That the funding is always a challenge, and you know, quite rightly, we're always on the lookout for grants that we can apply for that would then enable us to provide our training and our programming to small businesses for free or at a very low cost. So ultimately, that's what we want to be able to do is, you know, help as many small businesses as possible. So that really is probably our biggest challenge. I think behind that, as a follow-on, is that we don't really have we've not got a big marketing budget, so we rely very heavily on word of mouth and of people, businesses that have, you know, already participated in our programming talking about us, or sharing joint case studies, or sometimes with some of our larger sponsors, finding opportunities, say, at events to talk with them and shine a spotlight on what they've been doing to hopefully then encourage other businesses to do the same. But really, we want to reach as a charity. We want to reach as many SMEs as possible, and that is always an ongoing challenge. But I know I'm not alone as a charity CEO in saying that the funding is challenging. I also think what's really interesting, and I think this is what I've seen in the world of supplier diversity, is it's larger corporates being like, right, we want to do this stuff, and not only being interested in doing it, but having budget aligned to it to be able to work with experts who will be able to help them achieve their goals. And I think that's what we're seeing now in the sustainability space, is big corporates acknowledging like, right, we want to help our suppliers to do this, but that isn't free. We need to have some resource there to be able to invest in that. So yeah, that's one of I'd say that's, you know, that financial standing is always is always a challenge there.
Right, right. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I guess that's the not-for-profit
Yeah.
organizations, right? Always fighting to get funding for all the great things that you do. I mean, it's such a great and rewarding thing that you do.
Yeah. And I think when we were successful in the UK Shared Prosperity Fund money, that was really exciting, a really exciting moment, and is really helping the charity in terms of furthering its reach across the ethnic minority-owned business community, because we want them to know the support is available. But equally, if other businesses hear about it from that, we've got lots of free resources that they can access as well, even if they're not an EMB. But I think there's more around that general piece around whether that is public. Well, it will be both public and private sector thinking about how do we support our small businesses to do all this stuff around sustainability. You know, SMEs make up the vast majority of businesses in the UK. I mean, those stats are really similar across Europe and globally. Yeah, and although it doesn't always feel like it, most people work for an SME, so we want them to be on the front foot with responsible business, with looking at things like net zero, with thinking about their employee mental health and well-being, with thinking about the impact that they have on their local communities, and it all becoming part and parcel of how they run their business well.
Right. I remember our conversations, earlier where it was like, yeah, 99% of all the companies in Europe are actually SMEs, right? I mean, it's a backbone of
They are.
of Europe. So we need to
Yeah.
make sure that they are healthy and
Yeah.
happy.
Absolutely. And it bears out. They are, these stats, I say, they're very similar in the UK, in Europe, and globally. And I certainly have said it a couple. I don't want sustainability to be a barrier for these businesses succeeding, whether they're operating in a B2B environment or B2C. I think increasingly, both kinds of clients and customers are demanding more in this space and needing to know more about, right, okay, so what is your path? How are you going to get to net zero? Or if you've got a product, like, well, how do I know what the impact of this product is as I buy it off the supermarket shelves? So yeah, I want to make it as doable as possible for small businesses to help them upskill their own teams, so they're not necessarily having to rely on expensive consultants to do the stuff, but they can do it themselves.
Right. And not that everyone has to find their own solution, but they can really share their experience and also share knowledge, right?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely learning from each other too. And indeed, that's a feature of how we deliver the training. And, the team are experts in helping SMEs understand these complex topics, but we deliver a lot of our programming with the support of experts, maybe from larger corporates or from SMEs that are a bit further on that journey. But a big part are also, we might call them drop-in sessions or surgery sessions. There's also a chance to hear from other SMEs, peers, and understanding what they are doing and learning from each other. And I think that is a really, and any SMEs in our program get a really well-rounded learning experience.
Yeah, that's great. Learning from each other, and instead of everyone looking at their own, just for their own, right? It's so much more powerful.
Indeed, and I think that's the same when we talk to the larger corporates as well. Them sharing examples of what they've done, what they've tried, and how the impact that's had for them. I think that's incredibly important in telling these stories more around this work. This is how we did it. This is maybe we got a bit of money over here to do that, and different things like that. Yeah, hugely powerful.
Very good. Is there any like success story or something that really touched you in your past year at Heart of the City that you want to share?
Yeah, I think I'm inspired. I've worked with SMEs for more than 10 years, and I have to say, SME business owners, I find them inspiring in and of themselves, running and driving and building these businesses. And I very much the same at Heart City as they are, as businesses start to look at this topic. And as a reminder, that's what we specialize in, is helping businesses with the where do we start question when they're thinking about sustainability. And what we see are these journeys where businesses are like, they have not really any clue where to start. And by the end of one of our programs, they're like, brilliant, I now have those building blocks that I need. And it's been demystified. I know what I can start with. I've broken it down. The team have helped me to understand where I could start, what some of that low-hanging fruit might be, that step-by-step journey. We've got a really brilliant page on the website full of case studies. So if people want to find out more, you can see there, and there's case studies from architecture practices, from engineering firms, from recruitment firms, digital design agencies, a real mix. And I think what always strikes me is that journey that they go on from those kind of tentative first bits and being like, often they say the same things like, I don't even know what the language is. I don't even know what the jargon is. I don't even know what these terms mean, to getting started, to embedding some of the practices. And then one of the outcomes that we always say is a real sign is when maybe a business didn't have anybody thinking about sustainability, and maybe after a bit of time of working with Heart City, they maybe then have created either maybe a part-time or even a full-time role that looks at sustainability, because they can see just how positive an impact it will have on the business to be able to look at that. And I think the whole point about making it much clearer and less daunting, that is the feedback that we get again and again and again from the way that we deliver the programming. So yeah, I really like that. I'm also always interested, if a business hasn't looked at this topic, is the nature of the person that gets asked to do it. And sometimes it's somebody who's maybe got an interest in sustainability, so they'll kind of do it maybe in a bit of off the side of the desk because they're interested. Sometimes it might be like, I don't know, the EA to the CEO because they've been tasked with doing it. Sometimes it's maybe the most technical person in the room, but I know that Heart of the City can help any of these kind of people, any of these people get started on their journey and really understand it and embed it into the business.
Well, yeah, that sounds very interesting. Got to do with lots of different people and lots of different businesses. That sounds very exciting.
Yeah.
So is there like a signature event or something that's coming up also in person maybe that you want to share here?
A lot of the way that we deliver our program is online, which means that's flexible then for busy businesses to access whenever they need. They can listen back or dial in from their own desks. We do some in-person events, certainly as part of the Minority Business Matters project that I mentioned. There'll be some upcoming events. We have if a business is in the City of London, so right in the Square Mile, we'll have a business leaders breakfast focused on net zero in June. But really, there's so much resource online, and I think that is the way that we encourage businesses in a really easy way to participate. But we know when we bring business together, which we do a few times a year, just how much benefit they get from talking to each other. But we've got an events page on the website, and businesses can look and access there and sign up for any of the free sessions if they look interesting.
Great. Yeah, well, highly recommend it because, you never done enough networking, right? So
Yeah.
you never you're never done with networking anyway. Now, unfortunately, we're already almost at the end, and I just want to ask you if there is anything that you want to share before we close this podcast.
For me, one of the big things is for small business owners to know there is support out there. You do not need to tackle these topics alone and feel lost. Even if you don't do anything apart from download our jargon buster, do that. It would be one step that you haven't taken already, and that would really help. As I said, I don't want it to be a barrier to success for SMEs. But increasingly, as I said, working with large corporates, if you're wondering about, how do we support our SMEs, come and have a conversation with us. We'd be really interested to help and share what we've done already and what could work in the future. And I think, especially even if I say just look at the net zero topic, we're not expecting a business that does our program to be net zero by Christmas. It's not possible. But what we would be able to help them done is to have created a plan, maybe to have measured their first carbon footprint and to have got their plan in place and to be ready to tackle this, to decarbonize their business in the years to come. And that's what we want to have. We want to have a positive impact and help businesses get on their journey to being increasingly sustainable. So it's step by step. Don't have to worry about doing it all at once. The charity is here to help you to do that. And that's what I want businesses to know. Business leaders, small and from large businesses, that Heart of the City is a really brilliant resource for them.
Cool. Yeah, I love it because I think for many small or medium or large businesses, ESG or even, the new CSRD reporting requirements and so on, it all sounds like rocket science. And it's like, no, I'd rather don't look at it until I have to, right? So,
right. And we certainly, I would like to help businesses be on the front foot with this. So when they do maybe suddenly get asked in the next bid they're doing or the next tender or the next presentation, that they are able to articulate, actually, we do have a plan. This is what we're doing. This is what our focus is. That's what I really want to help business so they're not caught on the hop.
okay. Yeah, it's at least having a plan, right? At least starting somewhere and then, but as you said, really small steps, but you get there.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Maggie, it was so great to have you on the podcast and sharing, having insight into Heart of the City, which is a charity I think should be much more known throughout Europe, not just in the UK. So thank you so much for sharing all that.
Andrea, thank you so much. And yes, I do hope businesses will go and have a look. Have a look at the website, heartofthecity.com, and find out more about the resources that we provide.
Sure. And I will also make sure that I put the link to your website into the podcast information so it's available for everyone.
Amazing. Thank you.
Now, if you want to make your supply chain more inclusive, or if you want to know more about Heart of the City, or also the Minority Business Matter, reach out via fipsconsulting.com or Fips Consulting on LinkedIn. Listen in to my next episodes when I speak to more experts about supplier diversity and inclusion and the impact on their business or organization. Reach out if you have any inputs or topics around supplier diversity and inclusion you want me to talk about. Thanks much for listening, and bye, Diverse Owned.